call the Twilight Zone.
See Kerr, and you look at Steph and Clay, and even Draymond with his lack of performance.
He's in 2 in a row, 7 points for him. The twirling Doncic, melting into the defense. The front player strikes. Swing, fly ball, well hit left center. Ronald Acuna has home rookie rushing record for the Steelers.
Look, he came into this game averaging 3.67 yards per carry, 42nd out of 49 qualified rushers.
Freeze to begin the third quarter. It has been incredible. Here he comes again. Oh, goodness. And the Greek basketball god. And he was a great guy to teach the
What is going on, Rally Towel Sports family? I'm Aaron Mailing, and joining me tonight is People Magazine's 2023 Sexiest Man Alive, Bobby Lehman. Bobby, how are you tonight?
I'm fantastic. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you joining us here on a little bit of short notice. Corey is off with us tonight, so we decided what better way to keep this thing going than bring Bobby on with us. Of course, this is the Generous Degenerates. We are brought to you by Rally Towel Sports Family as well as Bill's Sports Mafia. Bobby, happy Wednesday to us. Again, thanks for hopping on here. How you doing?
I am fantastic, man. It's I'm usually on the sidelines for this show. It's nice to sit back and watch it, listen to it, but I'll tell you, it's nice thing to be a part of it too. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Well, again, we appreciate you having us on. So how's your bracket looking so far?
Bracket's not bad. Ryan Carp came with a comment saying Vols of the Final Four. Could be. No, brackets aren't bad. I think I'm sitting in 7th place. I've got 2 different brackets that are still in. I've got Houston winning one, and I've got Xavier winning the other. So, I don't know. We'll see. Some strange things have happened this tournament, and I'm looking forward to watching the second round here this weekend.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited. I think it was a fantastic first 2 rounds. We're going to definitely jump into a lot of March Madness talk tonight. I would be remiss if we didn't start with the WBC in what happened last night. And to me, one of the more exciting baseball events I think I've ever witnessed in my own life. I don't want to touch too much on it because I know you and Todd are going to go into full depth tomorrow night on Ring 'em Up. So everyone listening, make sure you're tuning in that tomorrow night as well. But Bobby, what were your thoughts in watching the WBC and United States and Japan last night?
I'll tell you what, man. If you're watching that, and like regardless of who you're rooting for, if you're not completely jacked as a baseball fan about like just the state of play that game had last night, like it was so exciting, start to finish, especially the finish, man. Like you couldn't have written it any better, and it came down to 2 teammates squaring off against each other, on essentially the world's biggest stage. I don't know if you saw this stat, but that last at-bat where Ohtani was pitching to Trout in Japan, 97.4% of all televisions in the entire country were watching that moment.
No shit.
97.4% of all televisions in Japan.
That is completely wild.
That's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about like the target share, the viewer share for like the Super Bowl, where it's like 45%, 50% of people are tuning in one way, shape, or form. That is complete, devotion to country. And what Japan has now won 3 of the 5 WBCs that we've had, which is impressive in and of itself. But you had just touched on the biggest thing of that whole event was the Ohtani Trout showdown to end it. And it was really broadcast out there live, whether you're following the game on Twitter, Facebook, or wherever, where it's like, hey, Ohtani's warming up and Trout is due up 3rd this inning. It's gonna happen. And of course, with the double play right before it as well, we get the first guy on base, bats grounding into the double play, and then Trout up there. I mean, to me, it just proves to me that baseball is fun. It just might not be in the right packaging. What do you think about that?
I mean, if anybody was sitting, like if anybody actually watched like a majority of the WBC. I'm not saying I caught all of it,
Sure.
but I watched a majority of it. And because not everybody's going to be getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning to watch those games early on in the tournament, but the ones that were later, they came on a reasonable time. 7 o'clock, 7:30 for most people here on the East Coast, and obviously a little bit earlier as you move west. But man, that was I don't know how to describe it, man. Like, because obviously the last WBC we had, I think, was 6 years ago.
Right.
So it's not on schedule to be every 4 just yet. I think that's where they're leaning towards on the next round of this.
Well, there's COVID too, which kind of threw a wrench in it.
Right, but it's since they took the reason the World Baseball Classic became a thing is because they took baseball out of the Olympics.
Right.
So but as far as I've digressed. I need to answer your original question about. This was a lot of fun to watch, and I think the way that it was packaged was a great thing to watch. I love it being at the beginning of the season. I know there's been players that have suggested it to be towards the middle once players are warm. But to kick off the baseball season, I don't know if there's any better way to do it.
I'd argue the opposite way, where, these guys are I think it was Smoltz on the broadcast last night that brought it up was, when these guys are getting into the postseason, they're running on nothing but adrenaline. They're fresh and running on adrenaline in these games. And obviously Ohtani, when he's playing, he's not rearing back, throwing 100 miles an hour every time because he knows he's got to go 7 innings. But that's why you get those events like you get last night, because, Ohtani knows he's going 1 inning or this game's over anyway. So,
right.
It's not like they're saving anyone. To me, it just reminds me of, this is what all-star games should be. This was an all-star game where the players actually gave a shit.
Yes.
All-star games are fun. And honestly, at this point, I would venture to say that baseball probably has the best all-star event when it becomes between the home run derby. And of course, the actual all-star game in baseball represents the game most closely, as opposed to basketball, where they're like, we're not going to play defense.
Right. It means something.
Yeah. And you can tell, for the United States, it's not like, a lot of these guys are really good, but they aren't, a lot of, Hispanic countries, Asian countries are going to represent a good majority of baseball players as well. White baseball players in the MLB, not necessarily that all of them are white, but, just looking at the roster, and I think you know what I'm trying to say here. White and frankly, African-American players are oftentimes underrepresented in baseball these days in terms of like the top elite talent. So it is interesting to see that like the United States is still able to compete on such a world stage like this. And I just had such a great time watching it. And again, it's, outside of watching I'm a Guardians fan, outside of watching them in the playoffs, that's probably the most fun I've ever had watching meaningful baseball, because when it's, Dodgers, Diamondbacks playoffs or something, I'm like, yeah, this is fun, but I don't really have a rooting interest in it.
I haven't watched meaningful baseball in 10 years. So, at least for somebody that I'm passionate about.
Who's your baseball team? Oh, Reds. I thought you were a Reds fan too. Okay.
Yeah. So, obviously it was incredibly fun to watch. I'm sad it's over, but I'm glad it happened. And it was just a ton of fun to watch and be a part of, and have some cold beers and sit there and shoot some texts back and forth, from you guys and a couple of my other buddies that were watching it. Just a great time. Great time to be a sports fan.
That just sounded like me coming to terms with my high school girlfriend not loving me anymore.
It was a lot of fun. I'm glad it happened.
Have a great summer. Well, I don't want to dive too much into it, step on any toes here, but anyone who's tuning in here, make sure you're tuning in tomorrow to ring them up. They're going to be diving full speed ahead into the WBC. And what other stuff can we look forward to tomorrow, Bobby?
We're going to be taking some dives into, over the next couple of weeks. We're going to be diving into a couple smaller market teams. So I know that I believe we're going to have you on for the Guardians here in a couple of weeks. So I know. Yeah,
I'm going to be out of town next week.
Exactly who we're hitting on this week, but I'm going to get with Todd and we'll talk about that tomorrow. But yeah, we hit some smaller market teams, just kind of going a little deeper dive into the rosters rotation, some young guys, just kind of talking some young talent and just, obviously recapping this great baseball event that we just watched. So it's a great time to be alive, at least be a sports fan. You got March Madness. Obviously, you had the World Baseball Classic, and now you got the Masters around the corner. Then you got the NFL Draft, and it's all just hitting you right here in the face.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's and me and Corey were talking about this last week. There's just something about this time of year where you're just like, okay, where the winter is coming to a close here, and obviously spring has officially sprung. The clocks have sprung forward, and we're moving forward. Bobby, I went to the driving range today
Nice.
before jumping on here, hit about 140 balls, and I was roping them. If this driving range session was any indication of how this season is going to go, I'm going to have the best season of my life. And there's just something
for like the video, sir.
Yes, let's go. So there is just something about that too, where it's something about this time of year where you're just kind of nostalgic to me, and to kind of move this onto March Madness. I get very nostalgic for that moment in college where it's, hey, this is Tez. What's going on? Thanks for liking the stream. I get very nostalgic for that moment in college where it's St. Patrick's Day, the first weekend of March Madness. I'm drinking beers in a garage. The weather might be nice a little bit. Some of the times we've got a couple nice days or things like that, but there's just something very college about the whole atmosphere of March Madness. Watching the first two rounds here, what were some of your takeaways, whether that be from a gambling standpoint that we'll touch on, or just in general watching basketball X's and O's?
Sure. Corey, thank you for liking the video. Quick sidebar. Did I tell you I actually played golf over the weekend?
No, where? How?
I played in a St. Patrick's Day golf outing on Saturday. It was 30 degrees at tee off.
You bastard.
We had these like, they're not, I don't know if you want to call it like a skirt or like a little like zippers, like a enclosed golf cart with a heater. So basically it was like driving around the course with in a nice little heated golf cart.
Man, do they have that for AC in the summer? Because I feel like I'd want that more.
That would be lovely. But no, obviously, you're just trying to go as fast as you can, drive up a hill, come down the hill, and let the air do its job. But no, played. It was cold as shit. Obviously, had to put my beer jacket on. It helped a little bit. But yeah, didn't hit the ball too bad. I mean, that's the first time actually, putting any swings out, and it wasn't on the driving range, which sucked. But hit some nice shots, man. Hit some good shots, really good off the green. I had a couple ones that I put maybe from 40 yards, put within 3 feet. So it was a good day.
So speaking, you were just talking about the Cincinnati resident. First of all, that's awesome. I'm very, very jealous. I have a golf trip with some buddies planned in about a little over a month, and we're going down to Louisville. But I took that Thursday off before, and we're leaving at like 7 a.m. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Stone Lick Hills.
I am. I played it. Beautiful course.
Yeah, it's like top 5 public course in Ohio. I'm going to be playing that along the way, and I'm very, very excited. I think I've done the Grint flyover a good 10 times already.
Well, I'll tell you, make sure you bring enough balls.
I brought 120 Kirklands on second swing, so we're gonna.
You're gonna need quite a few sleeves of those, my friend.
Well, they came in a large box, unsleeved.
Well, then just take the box. Just throw it in the next to the cooler.
I will.
I'm sure you'll run through quite a few. You'll have to let me know how many you go through.
It'll be a lot, but I'll let you know. So again, changing gears here to March Madness. Yeah. Corey in the chat talking about the Creighton Blue Jays. That was one of Corey's teams that he was big on, pulling up the stat of teams that were top 50 in both offense and defense. And we kind of both agreed that they had the best value. And Corey, if I'm not remembering it off the top of my head, but I know you got good value. I want to say it was like plus 2,800, something crazy for them to win the championship. And here they are in the Sweet 16 with, frankly, a little bit of a softer entry, going up against 15 Princeton, who, don't get me wrong, deserves to be here. You don't get this far by fluking your way. They beat Arizona and they beat Missouri. But as far as Creighton's concerned, to know that they're in the Sweet 16 playing a 15 seed, they'd sign up for that every day of the week. Are there any matchups or actually looking at the recap more so from the first and second round, everyone knows about the 1 seeds, but was there any
Right.
big surprises that really caught you off guard?
Well, I'll tell you, man. I know it's a spread. I was actually just sitting here doing the research here. It's actually the team that Creighton's going to be playing this week. It's Princeton. Princeton not only beat Arizona, they came out in the second round and laid the wood and won by double digits.
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna be my game to watch this week. Is going to be Creighton Princeton. I think that's going to be a much better game than a lot of people anticipate. But did you hear about the guy that put the bag down on Farley Dickinson to beat Purdue? He put like 33 grand down on them to win and won over $500,000
for Princeton to beat.
Farley Dickinson to beat Purdue.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah. Sorry, I haven't heard anyone refer to them other as FDU.
Is it Fairley? Is it Farley? I don't know how you say it. FDU, whatever.
FDU.
But yeah, he put the bag down. I mean, that was maybe another one that a lot of people may not consider really an upset. But I just love Tom Izzo. Michigan State coming out and beating Marquette. I think that's a solid win. It's still a five seed difference, so I would still consider that an upset. By no stretch of the imagination there, but Tom Izzo,
especially when you just take a look at the Big Ten in general.
Yeah, the Big Ten struggles in the tournament. Always.
And Tom is Michigan State's always one of those teams that when they're like a 5 seed or below, a lot of people like to throw them in the Final Four in their brackets because Tom Izzo always gets there or always advances in some way. Of course, whether you talk about, different storylines or anything like that, of course, the tragedy that happened at Michigan State this year, sure. So it's cool to see, them to have something to rally around and really bring that school back together. So a good shout out there too. I was, I'm certainly not a Michigan State fan, but I wasn't rooting against them by any means.
No. I mean, Izzo is just one of those guys where as a player, I would play for Tom Izzo.
Yeah, I think I would too.
I've always enjoyed him as a coach. It's kind of like Bill Self, love Bill Self. There at Kansas. No, Kansas took an L. Bill Self's one of those guys that I enjoy.
Well, that was an interesting game too. And who was it that they played in the second round? It was I got to pull this up here. I got the whole bracket in front of me and I can't find them. Against Arkansas. That was a game where I laid a lot of money. Well, not a lot. I just put a unit on it, but I put a lot of confidence behind the fact that Arkansas was going to cover that game because I knew Bill Self was out. He had to be hospitalized with chest tightness. Yep. And I think coaching is very underrated when it comes to March Madness and how much of a factor that coaches have on the game. And I didn't necessarily think that Arkansas was going to run away or win that game as they won by 1, but those are the type of little edges that you do try to find on the betting market.
For sure.
So a couple other things to note from, taking a look at the first 2 rounds. I think Penn State did a really good job of, representing themselves well. The way that they played in that first round matchup against Texas A&M and basically just took it to them for the entire game. Had a really, really good matchup against, Texas as well. Who were some of the teams, coming into this bracket that you were? I know you did a couple brackets. Who are some of your champ picks?
Who's gonna win?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have Houston. Houston. Obviously, I feel like every year when you do multiple brackets, you got to take a number one.
Got it.
And in my opinion, I think Houston was the strongest.
I think you also have to make a bracket where it's like 3 1 seeds and a 2.
Yep. So I've got Houston going all the way in 1, and then I had a homer pick, and I had Xavier, which they're still in it, which is great.
It's great.
And then I think the other bracket I have Alabama winning that third bracket, but that one got wrecked so far, just so bad, so early that it's not even close to being in contention, even with Alabama still in.
Yeah. So. Well, in our bracket that we did for Rally Tell Sports, I picked Arizona, so I get it. One of the bets that I highlighted last week that is still alive, I got 3 teams for this to cash, is I took just the Big 12 to win.
Nice.
240. So we're still looking at, obviously Kansas losing like that was unfortunate because that was one of the teams that part of the reason I made that bet. But having, Houston, Texas, and Kansas State still remaining in the Sweet 16, it at least gives you, and this was something I highlighted with Corey last week, is just kind of gives you something to tune in for, even when you're not going to put money down on every game. And should, Houston get to the finals against anybody else or vice versa, or however, I can always hedge against that if I'm not as confident.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, man, Kansas State doesn't have, I mean, they got to play Michigan State.
Yep.
But they're most likely, if they advance, they're going to be playing Tennessee, because Tennessee's playing for Atlantic, and Tennessee's just look too good.
Yep.
So I would assume you're going to get at least one of those to the Elite Eight. Houston, Miami's a tough one, man. Miami's
a tough one, but I also I'm looking at a collision course here of, one of them has to knock the other off between Houston and Texas if they advance.
True.
But that does also, should it go that way, guarantee me a spot in the Final Four. That's why, again, Kansas losing kind of derailed that a little bit, but
I see. They're spread out. No, that would have been, if they would have advanced, that'd have been a solid bet.
Yeah, that was part of the reason I made it, was looking at Texas, Houston, and Kansas all on the same side of the bracket, where it could have been an all Big 12 Final Four, and I wouldn't have been surprised. But of course, Kansas had other plans, and that's okay. That's what makes
it basically cashes in the third quarter with your feet up.
Right, exactly. And that's my favorite bet. That's my favorite bet in the world, where I go, I don't want to stress at all. So I had mentioned to you offline, taking a look at some of the trends here. The under was just elite over this past weekend. Vegas made an absolute killing. Their complete blind spot for the first 4 days was extrapolating every single under. The under went 32 and 18. $100 better would have been about $1,300 plus if they just decided that's all they were going to bet on every single under across the board. This is one of those things where I'm reversing this trend. I don't think Vegas made the adequate adjustment in real time. And finally on Sunday, it started to reverse course a little bit. But even then, the unders were still hitting. It should go 50-50, in a perfect world. That's what Vegas wants, because they're always going to win money with the juice. So we had just mentioned, that's one of the bets that I'm going to be big on this week here, is going to be this Creighton-Princeton game, where I believe the over-under right now is sitting at 139.5. Let me double check that. Yeah, 139.5.
FanDuel's got it at 138.
Yeah, so I use Action Network, and so there's no. I believe you're right.
138.5 on FanDuel for Princeton. Creighton.
Yes, you are correct. So
that seems low.
So what's cool about Action Network, and they don't sponsor us by any means, but they should, because I talk about them enough. They average out all the books, so I can click on. So I'm looking at 139.5, but I can click on it and see that at FanDuel I can get it for 138.5. But I'm going to get that at minus 115, where I might get 105 for somewhere else before that line moves. That's also a good way of looking at the trends of, should I bet this now or should I wait? I think I'm going to get an extra half point here because it's minus 115. It's going to come down to the minus 110 and move here. So, or excuse me, at minus 105, vice versa. Anyways, that's one that I'm going to be big on here. I think I'm going to take the over here. I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm not necessarily calling out this play just yet. But when I look at these two teams, taking a look at the trends from this past week here, Princeton putting up, 78 against Missouri, Creighton putting up 85 against Baylor and 72 against, was it NC State the first game? Yeah. Those are high significant point totals. In their, the under hit in both of Princeton's games, but it was 145 and 153. You can see that coming down now. So I think that's going to be a good one here. But again, it's a little too premature to make that play right now.
Pops, thanks for liking the video. What do you think about the Miami Houston? It's we've 138.5 for that over under, and I think that's a absolute lock for the over.
Yeah, right now
Miami's coming off an 85-point scoring affair.
For what it's worth to you, the Sharps are on that currently. And let me look at the line movement please hold. The total started out here. The total is actually coming down. It started at 139.5 and we're averaging at 138 across the books. I like the play. My problem is not problem necessarily. I'm going to use Thursday to wait and see a little bit, just to see how these over-unders react. Because when you look at 32 and 18 for unders cashing, I want to see how Thursday reflects that. I want to take a look at Thursday at the end of the day and see what was the over-under. Was it back to 500 or are the under still cashing? Because, Bobby, in these games, you have college guys playing in some of the biggest games of their life in stadiums that are the largest stadiums they've ever played in. They always talk about the sight lines. That's why the unders cash in a lot of these. The finals are, Final Four is being played in a football stadium. It looks a lot, the backboard looks a lot different as opposed to your home gym. Not to mention everyone's a little bit tighter just because of, the stakes at play.
Time.
It's tournament time. So I do like that. What I do like is you're going to get some good spreads here because some number one seeds are out. You had mentioned before that Princeton-Creighton game to me is probably, like you had said, my favorite game of the week. Another one that I think is going to be pretty interesting here is going to be the UConn-Arkansas game. You're looking at a 4 and an 8 seam. Of course, UConn is a blue blood legacy type team, but that's a Thursday game here. We're looking at plus 4.5, minus 4.5. UConn getting the advantage there at minus 4.5. I've liked what I've seen out of Arkansas, man. That is just a team that's just got some guys on it. They all play very, very hard. There's anything sticking out to you in those, or any other matchups that are catching your eye?
Honestly, man, I'm gonna be tuned into the Xavier Texas game.
Yeah,
I have a little fellowship there. Obviously, with Xavier being so close to home for me. That's the last team that's really in it, so should be a good game. Xavier's had a great season so far, and Texas is a formidable opponent, so should be a good game all around. This weekend should be another exciting weekend for college basketball. Who do you think's got the best chance to get upset this weekend?
Texas. And you were just talking about Xavier. I don't really know if I call that an upset, but one of the things that I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks is when you take a look at Texas, they are, let's see here.
I mean, technically it's an upset.
Their overall record is 26-8. Their overall record against the spread is 17-17, which means they play very, very, very close games. They play down to the level of their opponent. Now, playing down to the level of your opponent when it's Xavier isn't necessarily a bad thing. Right. But I think I like that to be a very, very close game. And when you're a team that doesn't, what's the old saying? Good teams win, great teams cover. I don't think this Texas team is great, but I do think that they are good enough to win the whole thing. So that would be the one that, as a 2 seed, I wouldn't be crazy surprised. I don't think, of what I've seen from San Diego State so far, that they're going to be able to upset Alabama. So looking at the rest of the spread here, they're pretty evenly matched. I don't think I would consider, I guess FAU over Tennessee, but that's a 9 over a 4.
Yeah.
But I think FAU has done some, I don't even know, because they got FDU in the last round and, they barely beat Memphis. I think these are all pretty evenly matched games. I'll stick with the Texas answer, but I think Miami could be interesting against Houston.
Do you think Princeton has a chance? I mean, obviously the largest spread there, 9.5. I think if you're betting, I think that's probably a pretty solid cover there.
Yeah, I think that's a good one to get to bet the plus on. because of what you've said. And I know we were just outlining that one a second ago, so just bear with me while I pull that matchup up here. But yeah, I mean, the line started at 10 and it's still sitting at 10. So there hasn't been enough action on either side to move it one way or the other. But for Princeton, they obviously covered both times because they've been plus in every matchup so far this tournament. And of course they should be. They played Arizona and they played Missouri.
Sure.
But they were plus 6.5 last week at tip off to Missouri. And, taking a look at it again, Creighton is a team 16-17 against the spread overall this year. So, again, a 21-12 team. So I always like to look at the discrepancy between teams that, have a 2/3 winning record, but are barely 500 against the spread. Those are the teams I like to bet against. Not that they won't win the game outright. Those are also pretty good matchups to potentially take a money line on.
Fair enough. No, I mean, I'm just looking at all the spreads this week. For the most part, it's tight. Only a couple matchups above 4.5, and the rest of them are. This can be a good weekend of college ball. Coming with a comment. Sweet 16 looks good for teams that have guard play and seasoned players, meaning some of the teams have older players who know their role. And I think you're going to be seeing more and more of these seasoned players with the NIL. I think a lot more players are going to say, hey, I'm not only getting an education, I'm getting paid to play basketball and getting paid millions of dollars to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Art.
No, 100%. I mean, you don't have to make the leap right away, if you're not
Anymore.
ready. And frankly, that's a benefit to the NBA because you don't have these guys that are coming in who are just unseasoned. Nobody wants anything unseasoned, right? Whether it's French fries or whether it's basketball players. I want to make sure that these guys have had enough time to, really, become the players that they're supposed to be. There is a little bit of an ebb and flow there, though, because you don't want 22-year-old rookies. But certainly guys that's always the discrepancy in March Madness is you have these teams that are, built off of freshmen that are the best athletes in the country going up against these mid-majors that have juniors and seniors that have been playing together for 3 to 4 years and just have this chemistry and maturity and, frankly, basketball IQ that is going to trump the talent oftentimes. So that's what makes March Madness so much fun. And to Charlie's comment here on the guard play, that might be the most untalked about thing when it comes to March Madness. It does not matter how good your bigs are when your guards aren't getting them the ball. Guard play, in my opinion, was the most singularly important aspects of tournament time. And I think that kind of leads into one of the matchups we haven't talked about yet is UCLA Gonzaga in terms of one that I'm really, really excited about. Gonzaga has just kind of been one of those snake bitten teams when it comes to tournament time where I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop every year. Do you think this is a Gonzaga team that can finally go the distance, Bob?
I don't know, man. I mean, from the epic days of the stash to now.
I couldn't believe Timmy's still on this team. I know there's like the COVID exceptions, but he feels like he's been on that team for 8 years.
Drew Timmy has been on that team for, I'm trying to think. You know what? Let's just look it up. Let's see. He's got to be at least a 6-year.
I think he's like a 5-year, 6-year. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that's great to have tournament time because he's been there like 5-6 times. He's got that leadership. He knows how to settle guys in. And like you said, the bigs can't get going if the guards aren't there, but the Gonzaga Bulldogs have the guard play. They can utilize that talent down low and get them and feed them the ball. So this is the best shot that they've had. I in my opinion, I think they've had some talent in the past, but if there's going to be any time for them to do it, now is it. Once Timmy leaves and they lose some of that veteran leadership, I just don't know if it's feasible for them to get deep into the tournament.
They do a good job of recruiting. There's always, they're always like a top 4 seed. And for a team that outside of their basketball, I don't think anyone would know where or what Gonzaga is.
Right.
Of course, famous for, John Stockton played there. There's a lot of really great, NBA players that have come out of Gonzaga. But for whatever reason, when it comes to tournament time, and, we saw them even get as far as the finals and lose to Baylor a couple years ago, they just always seem to kind of falter towards the end. So in terms of March Madness, there's still a lot of really good stuff going on. I honestly, this has been in my opinions, one of the best March Madnesses I've seen in the last couple of years. Seeing 2 number 1 seeds go out early, Arizona lose day 1. I love seeing those type of upsets. I really hope that we're going to keep seeing the chaos that we've seen up until this point.
I'm just sitting here. I'm looking at the bracket right now, and I'm just looking at every single game, and there's not a ton of blowouts. Typically there's quite a few where you just get stomped, which it was really funny to see Furman riding high after beating Virginia, then lose by over 20 to San Diego State.
Yeah, right.
But no, I mean, I would say probably from looking at it, without actually doing the math, I would say probably about 70% of the games were decided by less than 10 points.
Yeah, there were some really, really electric. And you know what else is crazy? Not a single overtime.
Are you serious?
Not a single overtime in the entire first 2 rounds.
Wow.
I wonder what the odds on that would have been.
Astronomical. That would have probably cashed big. I would. I don't even know if anybody had a line for that, but yeah, I mean, there's usually at least like 7 or 8.
Yeah, I mean, there's usually
2 rounds.
Yeah, there's usually a couple. Maybe like, I don't know, 7 or 8 seems a little high, but still like 1 or 2 you're gonna get. Of course, March Madness is famous for the buzzer beater, but sometimes that buzzer beater is to just get you to overtime.
Yeah.
So kind of wild to not see one at least go into an extra frame. But I think the teams that are remaining are certainly deservingly so. I don't think anyone kind of lucked their way into the Sweet 16. I think we've seen that happen before, whether it be a team upsets somebody gets injured. I think it's been a tough path for everybody to get to where they are. Even these 1 seeds to get where they are. I think we're looking at some of the best parity that we've seen in college basketball that we've seen in a long time, which is wild to say because we've seen a lot of Final Fours that have gone somewhat chalk, 1s and 2s and some 3 seeds. But I think college basketball is in a really, really good place right now. And I'm certainly excited to watch the next 4 days of more madness. We'll kind of turn the page here, Bobby, before we do anything else you want to touch on here for March Madness as we move into some NBA talk.
No, just get your popcorn ready. Should be another amazing weekend of basketball. Do you have any particular bets or like player lines that you like or anything that we haven't talked about?
I am not as familiar with the college basketball players as I am with the NBA. So I have a rule that I just kind of stay away from the props just because I don't really have any business betting on them, frankly.
Sure.
But with that being said, the ones that I had outlined there, I like the over in the Creighton Princeton game. I think that's a really, really interesting low total. And part of the reason I like that one too is it's a Friday game. So I get the benefit of seeing how the over-unders react to the Thursday slate. I really like UCLA -1.5 to Gonzaga. I think UCLA really surprised me because I know they're out one of their best guys going into the tournament. They just look really good. And I'm always kind of waiting for Gonzaga, like I said, for that shoe to drop. So I'm going to kind of play into that a little bit. I like the -1.5 for UCLA. The over-under there scares me a little bit at 145.5. So I'd certainly stay away from that. And I like Arkansas +4.5. I think UConn is a good team, but Arkansas has just shown me that they can just the way that those forwards play has been really impressive to me. And let's face it here, they've played, Kansas, they beat by 1. That's certainly not a fluke. And the way that they just took it to the Illini in the first game, I like Arkansas to cover.
All right. Fair enough. So good stuff there. I hope you guys' brackets are still intact. As
They're
far as
not.
NBA is concerned, yeah, nobody's is.
Did you see it was like after the first after day one, there wasn't a single perfect
like
bracket.
3 hours into day one, like there was already, I think there was only like 120 perfect brackets left. It's like, good for you guys, whoever picked the 16 over the one, because that's just impossible. But no, we got some fun games in the NBA tonight. Some playoff implications as well. Obviously, you and I were talking about earlier. The Bulls finally got on the board, but they are down 30. It is
It's not baseball.
73 to 43. It was 17 to nothing
That
when
shouldn't
we
be
hopped
impressive.
in
That's true.
here.
That's true. That's true.
But no, they're down 30 to the Sixers right now. The biggest one tonight is the Warriors Mavs, which is a 7-point spread right now. You know, the one thing I love about the NBA playoffs is that so many teams get an opportunity to get in and take their shot.
Sure.
Like, in order to not make the playoffs in basketball, you have to have an absolutely shitty season. Like, you can still have a losing record and still get in the playoffs in the NBA. Still get in a play-in game.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, at the West right now, Oklahoma City Thunder are at 36 and 36 in the 7th seed, right? Two of the play-in teams are losing records, and the East also has 2 losing records in the play-in.
Yeah, you got the Raptors and the Bulls, both 35 and 37. Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, what's your biggest thing, going into these last couple of weeks of the season? Do you see anybody that's on the bubble that can make a run and slide in there?
Yeah, I think the Western Conference is just completely wide open. There isn't really a team that, the Nuggets had run away with it for the whole year and have frankly just fallen back down to earth. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They've lost some games to the Spurs, to the Rockets, games that you just don't, when you're a great team, you don't lose.
Yep.
Jokic, and I think we'll touch on this after here, but I want to kind of touch on the MVP race and how that's really shaken out over the last 2 weeks, where it's been Jokic's all year, even though he was going for 3 in a row, which is unheard of in today's NBA. But in terms of the Western Conference, I'm looking at the odds coming into today. The Nuggets are at plus 270 to win the Western Conference. The Suns also at plus 270. The Warriors and the Grizz are at plus 500. I think the Warriors are still getting that legacy respect, and a team that, let's face it, once we get into the playoffs, that's not a team I want to play. They're a team that does not deserve to be a 6 seed. So if I am that would be the Kings to start out, that's not a team I want to play. And what's crazy is the Warriors are plus 500 to win the Western Conference. The Kings are plus 2,500 at the 3 seed. That means they're anticipating the Warriors to win that series.
Oh, for sure.
That's good value to me. I'm going to throw a little bit on the Kings. I'm just saying it.
No, I mean, that's fantastic. And yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's been Jokic's award to lose all year. I mean, he's playing some of the best basketball you've ever watched, and it's not even close. And do the Nuggets have enough to get there? Do they have enough to finally take it all the way this year?
Here's the thing: Jokic is no longer the favorite. Joel Embiid is now the minus odds favorite because of the way he has played over the last month, and I love it.
Well, I mean, the Sixers are on a tear, man. They're 8-2 in their last 10, and he's playing some great basketball. Like I said, Jokic is to lose.
I wanted to touch on the I wanted to touch on the Nuggets there for a second, or I'm sorry, the Kings, when you had mentioned, are there some teams that you think could make a late season run? I don't think we're giving the Sixers enough respect. What they have done in the second half of this season has been nothing short of impressive to me. I think they're a team that there's not really a guy in the league that matches up well against Joel Embiid. He can certainly take over a series. He can win 2 games on his own in a series. The big question mark, of course, is going to be James Harden. And since James Harden has never won an NBA championship, and this might be his, last best chance to do it, I anticipate seeing a very motivated Joel Embiid going down into these playoff series as well. I like the Sixers a lot, man. I don't think they're getting the respect they deserve.
Yeah. This is, I would agree. This, as far as James Harden's career, I've never been a huge fan of him, but this is definitely his best opportunity. He's got the best big man he's ever played with in his entire career. When I say big man, I mean a dominant center, not a Kevin Durant style stretch forward.
Sure.
I mean an actual big guy.
He had Dwight Howard, Rockets Dwight Howard, which I agree, but at least at that point in his career was still something. But you're 100% right. There is nothing comparatively to what Joel Embiid is doing. I mean, he's basically putting up 35 a game right now with ease. In fact, what is he averaging right now? He's averaging 33 and a half.
Ridiculous.
And the other thing too that's really exciting is he's going for this MVP. Like he is doing everything but going on morning talk shows and like he's premiering a movie, like trying to get this award.
He's running for president.
Exactly. He's doing the rounds. And I love watching Joel Embiid right now. Unless he's playing the Cavs, because it kills me every time.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, Donovan Mitchell, what a season that guy's having.
Yes.
I just did not expect him to go to Cleveland and just dominate the way that he has, but it's been a treat to watch him just light up the stat sheet every single night.
I'm surprised in a way, but I'm also not surprised at all. And the reason for that is just my complete belief in Evan Mobley. And I think over the entire season, you've seen him just grow and grow and grow and grow, where I guarantee you next year I'm going to put money on him for Defensive Player of the Year. No doubt in my mind. But what has been impressive and really where the Cavs showed up last year on the scene with, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. What they were really missing, Darius Garland is really more so a Chris Paul type modern point guard, not in the same way, but like how modern NBA is played, where you don't really see a lot of pass first point guards anymore. Of course, any night Darius Garland can go off for 30 points because that's just what the NBA is nowadays. I think there's like 40 guys, 50 guys in the league averaging 20 or more points a game. Unheard of. That number used to sit around 8 or 10. It's just the way that the pace of the NBA game is played these days. But the one thing that the Cavs were sorely missing was a guy who can just go out and get his bucket. And it was just a shot in the arm for the Cavs this year. They're a year away. In my opinion, it's nice to see them get some energy, get some experience. But Bobby, take this Cavs team and put them in the West and tell me they're not the maybe a favorite to make it to the finals.
I can't say I can't say I disagree with that. The
three best teams are in the East.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that the Eastern Conference is the strongest conference in the NBA right now. If I can't remember for the longest time it was the Western Conference. The Western Conference is just dominated.
Right.
There's been this shift. Yeah, I'm trying to really think of when it happened. I think when LeBron left the East and went to the West, that's for me that's kind of when it shifted.
I was going to say
in a big way.
Yeah, when Kawhi got traded to Toronto and they won that championship. And then, of course, he went back to the West. But I just think the way that you saw Giannis become arguably the best player in the world, I would for my money right now, I'm still taking Jokic if I can take anyone. But I think you see in the West right now, the Warriors still have this mental stranglehold over the rest of the conference, where it's until somebody else, even comes close. The Nuggets right now have been the 1 seed for the whole season. They haven't made it out of the second round, with the Joker. So I think until anybody can threaten that, and honestly, the Grizzlies were right there. And of course, with all this Ja Morant stuff,
yeah, he did make his return tonight, and I'm interested to see what his stat line is going to look like. And then also Karl Anthony Towns made his return tonight. So we'll check in on that, and he's coming back from his injury. So Timberwolves are, they're still in it. They're at the nine spot in the West.
Right.
So obviously bubble borderline there. You've got the Timberwolves, the Jazz, and the Lakers, and the Pelicans. Really, those 4 teams fighting for those last 4 spots. So we'll see who ends up getting in there. But obviously, Towns coming back's big for them. Let's see. Let's hit the games here.
I'm not Towns, whatever to me. The Timberwolves are. If I'm a Timberwolves fan, I'm jumping ship. I'm sorry. They gave up 3 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert, and they're worse this year.
Yeah, I mean, how can you expect to be better when you're giving your future for Rudy Gobert? Oh, Rudy Gobert's not worth 3 first-round picks.
Jazz looking good though for future.
Jazz look great.
What Lauri Markkanen has done this year is just incredible.
You think he's the most improved player year over year?
I have money on Shea, so no, but yeah, he should be. He probably should be. That's another interesting one where I bet that months ago, and Shea Gildress was just playing at such an elite level, and I was getting plus money on it, and I thought Lauri at some point was going to come back down to earth. Not necessarily come back down to earth, but I thought for sure the Jazz were going to just kind of shut it down, where it's like they were supposed to be tanking this year, and they're fighting for a play-in. Of course, they have enough draft capital to move around and stuff like that, but nobody's given up that first overall pick for any amount of money. So that'll be interesting to see. But I'm very impressed with what the Jazz have done this year. Yes.
So I was, obviously, talking about, awards, things like that. I was reading an article about how Brook Lopez could win Defensive Player of the Year.
He shouldn't. And if he does, I'll be just insulted.
And the angle that they were trying to take, like, I get it, but like, I don't see how I agree with you. I don't understand how he could win it. But the angle they were taking is that he's been such a dominant, from the free throw line to the rim defender that he allows Giannis and the rest of that team to really stretch themselves defensively. And the only reason they can do that is because they've got Lopez there that can cover the paint pretty much by himself.
Like the 3rd best defensive player on that team.
I would agree with you, but there was an argument. There was some article I was reading that they had him number 2.
There's a lot of advanced stats out there about like his like closing rate and shit like that, and that's fine. Dude, but real hoopers, no, I'm just kidding. No, like he's fine. It's one of those, and I want to pull it up too because I've heard this all year. To me, it's going to be Triple J with Memphis. I think that's who should win it. Honestly, I think Drew Holiday should win it before you were going to give it to Lopez. Like Drew Holiday to me, in similar ways that Marcus Smart got it last year. When I watch games, Drew Holiday is the best defensive player in the league, in my opinion. I can't imagine a guy who's averaging what? Let's see. I know Lopez is averaging 2.5 blocks, but what defensive player of the year at the center position averages 6.5 rebounds? Just doesn't happen. When Ben Wallace was winning awards over awards, the guy was double-digit rebounds. You look at, it's just weird to me. And if he wins, I'm going to be just sad. He's fucking 34, dude. Like he's a product of the system.
When I think defensive player of the year, like I think of, especially when it's a big man, like I think it's somebody that's intimidating, right? Somebody that like I'm not taking it to the rack. Yeah, I'm not taking it to the rack on this guy because I'm going to get laid the fuck out.
Yeah,
that Brook Lopez doesn't do it for me. Just doesn't.
He doesn't do it. He doesn't do it for me either.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I try to take it. I mean, he would knock me on my ass because he's 7'2" or whatever. But
he'd take you to school. But we're also not getting paid to do this. So,
right.
Good for him. Don't get me wrong. He's having a phenomenal season, and he is a huge, important part to the number 1 seed in the East. Probably the best team in the league right now.
Yeah.
There is something to be said about that, but I just don't see it. I hope they give it to Jackson, but I hope they give it to Mobley, to be honest. But he's actually shot up the betting boards. It won't happen this year, but that's one I'm going to be big on for next year. A couple other ones. I mean, Rookie of the Year, Banchero's just run away with. There isn't even a.
I don't think anybody outside of Palos. I don't even know who else would compete with him for that.
What's his name? Jabari Smith has come on a little bit for the Rockets, but it's I don't know how much Rockets basketball you've watched.
Not a lot.
It is not fun. It's just clear outs. It's whoever brings the ball up the court decides what offense they're running, basically.
That's terrible.
I know. But hey, it's a lot of young guys who are trying to get theirs and that's okay. But really interesting time for the NBA right now. I absolutely love playoff basketball. Looking at it right now, if we were to, let's just say this season were to end today, one of the coolest matchups I think you get to see is Cavs Knicks in the first round. I think that would be an absolute bloodbath.
That'd be lit.
A bloodbath of a series. I think that would go 7 games for sure. As a Cavs fan, I would.
The first round only goes 5, right?
Behind me. What's that? No, it's 7. Basketball just goes 7 straight.
I thought the first round was 5, and then
it used to be in like the 90s. Like if you were watching The Last Dance, you'd see like the Bulls would win in 5. They changed that a while ago, but still in our lifetime. Okay. It's not like baseball where it's like the first round is. That's
probably where I'm getting it mixed up.
Yeah, because baseball's like that. Now there is the play-in, which is, are you aware of how that's set up?
The play-in's 3 games, right?
So the 7 seed plays the 10 seed, and if the 7 seed wins, they're in. The 8 seed plays the 9 seed, and the loser of that game plays the loser of the other game.
Okay.
So the if you're the 7 or the 8 seed, basically all you have to do is win, and you're in.
Okay. And then if what happens if the 9 and the 10 seed wins?
Well, they would have to win twice, but they would be in. Yeah.
Okay. So
the 7 seed, if
the lower seed wins, I'm sorry, if the higher seed wins, then it goes to 3 games. If the lower seed wins, then it's just they're in.
Right, but the 2 losing teams would play each other, if that makes sense. So like if the 7 seed beats the 10 seed, they're in. If the 8 seed beats the 9 seed, it's over.
Okay, gotcha.
The 7 and the 8 seed get the advantage of having to lose twice.
So the 7, okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. So the 7 and 8 get in, but if let's say the 7 wins and then the 10 wins and the 10 has to play the 7.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's a little weird, but I like it. I think it makes it interesting. It also does avoid tanking a little bit, although not entirely. But I think it's ultimately been a good thing for the NBA. Like the Cavs, for instance, were in the play-in last year. That made it fun. Of course, had the rules never changed, they just would have been in the playoffs. But I still thought that was the best way to do it. It's exciting. It's fun. It makes the end of the season, more worthwhile if you are the 9 or the 10 seed, because the players don't give a shit about your draft capital. They want to get in. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. So right now, who's your Eastern and Western Conference Finals? Who do you got?
Gun to my head, if I had to pick today, boy. I'm taking the Bucks. I'm taking the Bucks out of the East. I'm going to take the Suns out of the West. I think Durant is going to come back in the playoffs healthy. And I think if that team is healthy in the West, I don't think anyone can beat them. What about you?
Well, I meant your Eastern and Western Conference Finals, not the finals. But
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But no, that's great too. I'll pick.
No,
so you've got the Bucks and the.
Give me Bucks Sixers.
Love it.
Give me Bucks, Sixers, and give me Suns. And I got to make this work because that means they would beat the Nuggets. Give me Suns, Warriors. Like until the Warriors lose, it's hard to. Although I just did because I said the Suns are going to make it, but give me the storyline of Durant versus the Warriors.
That would be amazing. That'd be a great series to watch for sure. No, I'm kind of on the same train there. If the 76ers continue to play the way that they're playing, I think they're definitely going to get a shot at the Eastern Conference Finals this year. I think the Celtics are going to beat the Bucks. So I'm taking Celtics Sixers for the East, and then West. Let's see. The Suns are there for sure, especially with Durant healthy. I don't think there's any questions there. You want to pick the Warriors, but I'm gonna take Suns Grizzlies. I think John Morant coming back, I think he'll have his head on straight.
So at the beginning of the year, I believe I had Bucks Clippers as the finals, but I know for sure I had Clippers Grizzlies as the Western Conference Finals. The Morant thing, no one was going to predict that. It's absolutely bananas. It's insane. But I agree with you, man. I think the Grizzlies have such a young, talented roster, and if they can finally, get Morant back in the fold there and get back to where they were, nobody wants to play that team.
No,
bunch of dogs.
They're tough, man. And
importantly, Steven Adams. I mean, that's, of course, there was nothing that was going to change the fact that Morant was going to, go through the trials and tribulations that he did. But just on the court wise, that team just has not looked the same since Adams has been out.
No, yeah. I mean, Steven Adams is such an underrated guy. I always loved watching him, whether he was when he was with OKC. That was a ton of fun to watch. I mean, it was kind of him and Russell Westbrook for a while, and then and then Russ left, and he was really the most consistent part of that team, up until he got shipped out. But Steven Adams, the Jason Momoa in the NBA, he's such a hustler, and I love the way that he plays ball.
Yeah, I do too. He's a junkyard dog, man. You got to appreciate it.
He reminds me of like Birdman, but better than the Birdman.
Okay, I can see it.
Just because Birdman was a hustler. He was not talented in any way, shape, or form as far as shooting or things like that.
He had a lot longer of a career than he should have.
Yes,
just because the coke. But other than that. But
maybe Anderson Varejao. Maybe that's a better.
I think Varejao is probably a better example.
Maybe that's a better comparison.
Yeah,
I did love me some Andy.
Definitely a guy that you love having on your team, but
you hated playing against.
You hated playing against him.
Yeah,
which is basically what Draymond is now. Oof. But yeah. Well, Bobby, we're reaching about the hour mark here. Definitely covered our NBA, March Madness, WBC. Anything else you want to touch on here as we kind of get in towards the stretch run of the weekend?
No, just need to make a plug for our Masters pool coming up here next couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Outlet, it's you pick top 5, top 10, top 20, correct? That's what we did last year, or was it?
I'll have to dig into it. I honestly don't remember what Corey. I liked the way that Corey structured it. I thought it was really interesting.
So much fun.
It definitely made it. It was a lot more. It was a lot different than a lot of the pools that I have played in.
Oh no, you had to pick. You pick 3 golfers. One in the top 2. You pick 1 golfer in the top 10, I believe.
Yeah, we're going off world rankings.
World rankings.
Top 10.
2 between 10 and 40, I think. And then 1 after that, either way. And then it's by total purse at the end.
Yes, total winnings. So doesn't matter what they shot, just matters where they placed.
And how much money they made.
So obviously if you pick the winner, you're most likely going to win.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to do it.
So you you've got to get some people that are gonna maybe 1 or 2 top 10s and a couple people in the top 50, and I think you'll have a pretty solid case there. Who's your favorite to win this year? Who do you like?
I mean, I think Scotty is just too obvious, and he's going to be going for back-to-back. So if I'm really looking at it, and I just had him pulled up, so bear with me here.
Has anybody ever gone back-to-back?
Yeah. Let's see here. Going to majors. I kind of like the gate crashing and the thought behind Cam Smith, because he's going to be able to play.
Sure.
Obviously on the Live Tour now, but at plus 1,700. That's one I really like. Max Homa has been playing some really good golf of late. I think that would be an interesting one. And then Jason Day at plus 3,200 I would like as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really like Spieth. The last time he won was 8 years ago. Masters champion, obviously. He's been playing some great golf these last couple weeks. I like Ricky too. Ricky.
I like Ricky as like a top 20 guy.
I don't like him to win, but I like.
Yeah, I don't like him to win, but I like him
to finish.
I like him to place.
Yeah, top 25. I think that's a great spot for him. Let me see here. So, I mean, obviously, past winners get the invite, regardless of where they're at. So, you'll have a couple people from the Live Tour coming back to make their appearances here, which would be
this isn't. I'm looking at it. There's a lot of guys. I don't even think it's past winners. Is it a USGA event? Is that why? And it's not a PGA Tour event? Because I'm looking at the odds right now, and you got Koepka, you got DeChambeau, all these guys that are Live guys. They're actually on.
So this is the only tournament where if you have a green jacket, you can come back and play. I believe.
Well, that's how the majors. There's always an exemption for the majors, but I'm pretty sure.
I guess you're right. Yeah, because Koepka's never won a Masters.
Right. Neither has Cam, but he's finished twice.
Or DeChambeau. So
let me see.
Okay. No, you must be right. It must be different from it must be a USGA event.
Oh, well, so Live golfers recently got clearance to enter the Masters, Augusta, National Golf Club, and Masters Tournament Chairman extended invite. Oh, so it's the Augusta
tournament director,
right? Is like, hey, it's our tournament. We're letting whoever wants to come in. Interesting.
That's great. See, here's my thing. I don't think that the players should be exempt. Maybe you just exclude them from the purse. Like, if they're getting paid by Live, like let them play in the players and all that, but they just don't get a paycheck or they get a percentage, or I don't know. Like I just feel like we're losing a lot of, because like do you watch a lot of the Live?
I don't watch any of it. I don't give a shit
either. Yeah,
and I don't plan on it, but like I like Cam Smith. I was actually really upset when he moved over because he was probably my favorite golfer at the time. Like, who's not going to root for a guy with an Australian accent, a mustache, and a mullet? Like, that's not me. Charlie,
Bruce, thank you for liking the video.
Don't bet against Spieth or Scotty. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Scotty at plus 750 is, that's pretty bare bones odds already. So it's tough for me. It's tough for me to put money on that. Spieth is at plus 1,700. I'd rather take Spieth at plus 1,700 than Scheffler at plus 750. I also do not like just betting on outright winner. But in terms of the Masters pool, those are guys that are, you'd be silly not to take.
Let's see who's got the largest odds on FanDuel to win the Masters. That is
like the lowest.
Bernard Langer at plus 1.
Langer the hanger. He's
plus 100,000.
Yeah, I'm looking at that too. I want to know what they would put my odds at if I just showed up, and it would just be like, you're a billion. It just the odds thing would just say you're now a billionaire.
Right. there's I mean, don't get me wrong, that is obviously a dream to play that course. I probably will never happen, but it would be obviously I I wouldn't even care what I shot. I'd go out there and I'd shoot 167. And
it would be the greatest 167 ever. You know
Ever.
what you're doing there, Bobby? That's just good value. What do you want to
Yeah.
shoot it in 76 shots?
no, fuck
Boring.
no. I want to leave as many balls with my name on that course and in the water. So that way when somebody goes diving for them, they find one that says, "Hey, Bobby was here."
Every time I shoot bad, I'm like, oh, I just got good value. I just take my cost per shots.
You realize that I just spent 36 cents a shot.
Yeah, I could have spent 50 cents a shot and had a better day, but no.
Right. No, you'll be excited to play Stone Lake Hills. The one
Dude,
time
I'm so jacked.
One time I played it, they had a PGA Tour ready, and God bless America, was the
rough just insane?
Dude, no, like that part wasn't the worst part. It was the greens.
Oh, so fast.
It's unlike anything you've ever putted on.
I believe it.
Just think the best course you ever played, and then multiply it by 100, and then like you could tap a putt and it would go 30 feet past the hole.
They're just all the rainbow ramps in Mario Kart.
Yeah,
we're just
No, it's a good time. You'll enjoy it. Definitely take some pictures and drink lots of beers. So
I will. I'm not driving from there, so we're good. I'm pretty excited. But yeah, we'll be heading down to Louisville in about a month, and you got to hit Stone Lick on the way.
Hell yeah! Well, that'll be a good time, man. I think that about does it, though. You got anything else you want to talk about before we hop off?
I think that about covers it. I really appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun.
I wish I was a little more prepared, but yeah.
No, man, you're great. This is, I mean, like we said, this is just such a fun time of year where, I'm not a college basketball expert by any means, but I'm just like any other fan in the country where I'm so excited to watch March Madness. The NBA is coming to its natural conclusion for the regular season. The Masters are coming up. Baseball's coming up. This is the NBA or NFL draft is coming up. It's just such a really, really fun sports time of year. So I appreciate you coming on and having us outline all of this. So, hey, this is the Generous Degenerates. Bobby, again, thanks for coming on. For Bobby over there, I'm Aaron over here. We appreciate everyone coming on. Again, make sure you're following us on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, anywhere. We're going to be putting some more picks out there to follow along. It's hard to do it. Give you all our picks here on a Wednesday night. So make sure you're following us on the social platforms and you stay along with our picks and, hopefully we can win some stuff together. But Bobby, thanks again for coming on, man.
No, absolutely. My pleasure.
Peace.